Welcome to Transformational Perspectives, conversations on change, balance, and inspiration. I'm your host, Diane Wing. My guests share unique perspectives to help you grow personally, creatively, and spiritually so you can release what holds you back, live a balanced life, and come into your power. To learn more, visit dianewing.com. I'm pleased to welcome Master Astrologer Linda Moonrabbit Zlotnick. She's been practicing astrology professionally since 1978 and has developed an innovative approach to using astrology to address grief, which she calls the death chart. Her clients experience her as relational, empathetic, practical, and perceptive. She also teaches astrology and has written 2 books on using astrology to cope with loss: Death Charts, an astrological tool for the bereaved, and Star Sisters, an astrologer's memoir of twin loss. Moon teaches the master class in death charts at Kepler College. Find out more at astrologybymoonrabbit.com. Welcome, Moon.
Thank you, Diane. I'm glad to be here.
I am so thrilled that you're here because, wait, folks, I'm going to share her homepage, and this is her web page, her website, and everything you need to know is on here. And then I want to also share the page where you can get death charts because I know you're going to be interested in this. As you're listening, you're going to want to go to Amazon and get this book. Here we go. And here is the page for the buy page for death charts. So I was amazed because I've been studying astrology for a few decades. And what's great about astrology is that it's a lifelong study. And there is so much to learn, and there are layers upon layers of astrological techniques and methods and calculations, and there's so much data in these
Mhm.
charts. It's not about your sun sign, folks. It's really about what is it that is driving your personality, your potential. But I have never seen vocation, like all these different aspects of life, but I have never seen one applied to death and bereavement. And anybody who's lost somebody, it's like, why? What was the point of that? Like, what happened? And so, you've developed this method which is so unique, and you help countless clients gain a new perspective on the loss of a loved one. So, what prompted you to develop this technique?
This happened kind of because of my life. So in 2005, I had been practicing astrology almost 30 years. And it never really would have occurred to me to think about working with death until my identical twin was diagnosed with cancer and died 5 months later. And anybody who's ever studied astrology knows that I was going to look at the chart for that. I happened to be with her at the last breath of her life, and I looked at the time and I thought, I can't study this now, but I will hopefully study it later. And that chart, Diane, it gave me a perspective that really helped me recover. So if you're interested in the astrology, which is tropical, but so the South Node was on the ascendant at her last breath. And everything that I know about the South Node is that it has to do with endings and that it has to do with completions and that it has to do with kind of the unwinding or unraveling of karma from past lives. And I got this really clear impression that her life ended because it was time. She had completed her work here, and I wasn't ready to let go of her. But
Mhm.
that didn't mean that she hadn't completed what she came to do. And it took my suffering kind of out of this personal realm and it put it into something kind of more vast and spiritual because I do believe that we have a soul's journey and that we're in this lifetime because we're learning things. And uh, I thought if this could help me, possibly it could help other people. So between 2005 and 2015, I pretty much just studied on my own. And then I invited 25 of my clients that I knew really well who had lost a family member. And we worked on the death charts together. And I said, you tell me what happens, and I'll look on the chart. And I started building kind of a body of understanding about how this worked differently than natal charts, how it maybe in certain ways works similarly to other charts that I had been doing. And so now in 2026, I put it together the last 4 years into a book. The system that I developed over now, it's 220 death charts that I've done.
Wow. Wow. And just to be clear, everyone, this is not a prediction of death. It is once the death happens
Yes,
to derive meaning from it so that
exactly.
those left behind can cope with that loss because anyone who has lost somebody knows this, that grief is, it clings to you.
Hmm.
It doesn't like, it's hard to just, it's not something you can just let it go,
Right.
right? Um, but your method helps you manage it differently. Is that right?
Well, I would say that what a death chart or a death chart reading or the study of death chart allows people to do is to find meaning within the loss. So when we lose somebody, just like you said, everybody's like, why did this happen? And why did it happen now? And how can I cope with how hurt I feel or how lost I feel? And so
Or how
there,
guilty I feel.
yes, and everybody feels guilty. You're exactly right. And so there are answers that are that come about during these investigations using a death chart and all of the things that come with it.
Okay. Some people have associated timing of death with Saturn returns that are unresolved. Have you noticed anything in that regard?
Well, I would say that yes, I have seen certainly, I've seen children lose their parents in their first and a lot more in their second Saturn returns. But as I've studied death more, it seems to be this combination of a very poignant solar eclipse with 3 or 4 outer planet transits. So transits of Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, and Chiron, they all seem to manifest in a very large way.
Wow. Okay. And that's over 220 death charts. I mean, this isn't like just based on a few charts. This is
Right.
a pattern you've seen
Yes.
repeatedly.
Yes.
Um, okay. And you want to talk a little bit about Saturn returns for those who never heard of this?
So every 29 years, there will be this experience. And I think really differently now about the first and the second ones, which I've been through. So a Saturn return is kind of a period of really reintegrating your purpose and coming to terms with self-imposed limitations and learning to take greater responsibility for living the life that you want. So Saturn in astrology is one of the big teachers with a capital T, and usually it teaches us through hardship and limitation. So often in your late 20s, everybody is kind of like, oh, who do I want to be when I really grow up? And maybe I made a commitment to this job, but I hate the job. Or maybe I made a commitment to this person, but we have nothing in common. So life is forced, people are forced into reevaluating what really matters. The second Saturn return usually comes around right before you hit age 60, and people are thinking about retiring, and now there's like these questions of legacy, and whoa, time's kind of running short. And then if you make it to your late 80s, you hit your third Saturn return, which I just did a reading for somebody not that long ago. And life is smaller for sure. You're dealing with the limitations of Saturn. But this was somebody who was really committed to kind of how do I make best use of the time that I have left. And Saturn, because it has to do so much with time and timing, will often teach people important lessons about priorities and how they use their time.
Yes, Saturn is the taskmaster. There's no question about that. So, a lot of people use astrology as a predictive tool, and that's
Yes,
just one use of
yes,
astrology. But in the way that you're using it, it can actually help somebody navigate grief. Is that right?
yes, yes. And has been my experience. And I want to jump back onto the guilt part. So when I first started doing death charts, almost everybody felt like they did something wrong or they should have done something, or how could they have not understood that if, they had this amount of time left. So one of the things that has been really helpful over and over and over again in these death chart readings is um, I'm going to give you an example. They will so often clarify what was exactly happening at this point in time energetically, and it will mirror the person's experience. Oh my God, that's exactly what happened. And then they can let go of that they made a wrong decision or they made a mistake. And it's so helpful in that way. So I like to tell a little story.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
That
Yes.
because I think that the stories the last six chapters of the book are all these case studies which involve the stories and then the astrology to go with the story. So I think I'll use this example. This was a husband, and he had met his wife in college, and they got married in college, and they both were in the medical mental health fields, and they had three children, and they raised their children. And when she was in her late 40s, her best friend needed a kidney, and she was a perfect match. So she donated a kidney, and during the surgery, something went wrong, and she had a traumatic brain injury. So the injury was so bad that within a few years she couldn't work, and then her personality changed. And her kids didn't want to have anything to do with her. Her friends didn't want to have anything to do with her. But her husband basically stayed by her side and took care of her. So she eventually died, I think, in their early 60s. And he came kind of looking for some kind of understanding about what happened. So in the death chart, and he was with her, so he had a pretty good time. In the death chart, on the ascendant, which I have ascertained is the last breath, there was the symbol for the spouse. I used the little asteroid Juno. And then across the chart from that were all the other planets in a group opposed to him. So I looked at that chart and I said to him, "You were all alone, weren't you, in the last part of your life and in her death?" And he was just like completely affirmed and blown away that, oh my God, if the stars said that it happened this way, because he felt like he kept trying to get the kids to, come and spend time with their mom, but they wouldn't. So for him, it was like this huge release that he didn't have to have all these regrets. And obviously, people are looking for a different kind of healing modality that can help them see things from this perspective.
Yes. And every astrologer interprets the data differently.
Correct.
And depending on the perspective that you're approaching the chart from, in this case it's death, but I do vocational readings and things like that. Like that's a whole different interpretive framework
Yes.
than, doing it this way. And no, I think no matter which perspective you're approaching it from, it's really about repetition. Like do it, look at a lot of charts,
Yes.
right? Not just a few, because it could be an anomaly.
A
So
lot.
a
Mhm.
lot. So like you came up with the correct reflection of what happened. You
Right.
got it because you've seen so many charts, right? And it's not because he told you.
Right.
Um,
Right. Right.
hmm
So the death chart. So I always have said that the birth chart is kind of a long life narrative, so that within your birth chart, you can kind of, in retrospect, you can find all of the key factors for these crucial experiences that you have that shape your life. And the death chart is really a narrative of the leading up to the moment of and the period right after somebody dies. So you can't see like what happened to them on the other side, which I wish we could. That would be so
Oh,
nice.
that would be awesome.
But
Yes.
it really speaks to the people who couldn't get there to the person's bedside in time, or it really speaks to the people who were there and something happened that kind of shocked them. And now they can have it in this cosmic framework of understanding. So it brings a lot of perspective to kind of that real, not that people should come to see me early on in the grief, but in those moments of that most acute loss that we're having where people have those like regrets or those feelings of kind of how will I go on without this person in my life.
Yes. Well, that hole that's left, that void,
Yes.
um, the first reaction is usually, okay, what am I going to do without this person?
Hmm.
What is my life going to look like
Yeah.
without this person in my life? Um, and so the death chart really helps us refocus on the deceased. It's this is their journey. Is that right?
Yes. And uh, in using the death chart as a series of transits, you can also be informed about what I call a potential path forward.
Tell me more about that.
So I'll use my own example for this. So you know how as astrologers we're always looking at what's happening and we're thinking, oh, here comes this big transit, right? This big thing. So I was very aware of the fact that Uranus was moving into an opposition with my sun, which of course was happening in my identical twins chart as well, right? So Uranus I have found to be very, very like shake things up and kind of these abrupt things that you didn't see coming. And often Uranus will be separative in some way. So I was watching this transit and I was thinking, well, something I'm going to be separated from. This was opposing my seventh house sun, which rules my seventh house. So I'm going to be separated from an important person in my life. So when my twin called me from the hospital and said I have stage 4 cancer, I thought, oh, I'm going to be separated from you. And so the negative part of Uranus was that the disease progressed in really unforeseen ways. And it turned out that the first treatment they gave her was completely the wrong treatment. And then there was surgery scheduled, but then uh, she couldn't have it because of a different physical condition, or there was a snowstorm and you couldn't even drive across 2 blocks, let alone get to the surgery. So there was this Uranian kind of crisis, chaos, what's going to happen next? But then after she died, I thought about the positive side of Uranus, which is individuality, which as an identical twin, you don't really experience. because you can't. And we lived in the same town. She was a psychotherapist. I was an astrologer. I would go to the grocery store, and even after she died, people would come up to me. They would call me by her name and they'd say, "Oh, your hair is different." So, if you see somebody once a year, "Oh, you got new glasses." We tried to not look alike, but we were identical. We looked alike. So, having this individuality was terrifying to me, but it was kind of interesting and exciting. And one of the unfortunate things about twinship is that you get compared when you're growing up. And then if you try really hard, you don't compare, but you kind of still are always comparing yourself to this other person. So when that person is gone, the comparison is gone as well. And I
Mm.
actually found that rather liberating. And Uranus can be this planet of emancipation. So, that's just one little example of how I think about each planet as a possible path forward for the person who is grieving.
Yes. It brings up a question, and it's a little off topic of death, but as a twin, when you're doing charts for twins, because the time of birth is only a couple minutes, maybe, right?
Mm.
So it's not enough to move the ascendant
Mhm.
necessarily. How do you differentiate between one twin and another? Is it even possible?
So, do you know about the decans and the dwads within the signs? I think this must come out of I think this comes out of Indian astrology, Vedic astrology. So there are 30, 30 degrees in each sign of the zodiac, and you can break that down into the first 10, the middle 10, and the last 10. And so if you're born early in a sign, in the middle of the sign, or in the end of the sign, you express that sign differently. But then you can break each one of those into 2.5 degrees. So I've done charts for twins where their ascendant was 1 degree and I couldn't use that. So then oh, now I'm blanking on the name of it. So I think it was Dane Ruger who channeled a symbol for each degree of the zodiac, Sabian symbols.
Yes, yes, yes.
So then I use Sabian symbols. And
Okay.
so, I love doing charts for twins, and uh, I attract twins because am still a twin, even though I don't have a twin.
Right.
So, yes, the Sabian symbols have been really interesting. They've been really instructive for me. And then I'll just tell you my other theory about twins. I think that as a twin, you can't, you divide the chart between the two of you. So, there's always kind of the firstborn, secondborn. So there's the older child, middle child, younger child, whatever. But, there's kind of like one twin, and I've seen this with a lot of twins I know, will be more kind of really artistic, creative, and the other twin will be a little bit more analytic and factual. But if you look at the chart, you can see both of them. So some twins will lean into parts of their chart. And then when you see your twin doing it, if you can't win the competition, then you'll find something else to be good at. So that's kind of how I understand.
Okay. And you were the artistic one because you're also an artist.
Yes. And she
And
was an
she
artist too,
was
though, but she created this beautiful pottery and I did
okay,
painting.
so you
So then
both had the artistic
yeah,
part.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And then we were both healers, but yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. It's a fascinating question because
yeah.
if you have twins and you're trying to understand them astrologically,
Hmm.
it's hard if they're identical. Unless there's
Yes.
some kind of break in the, you know, birth from one to the next.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so we're talking all about astrology, but and some people swear by astrology, and other people just don't believe it at all. What would you say to these people regarding the death chart? Like, can it help the non-believers?
Absolutely 100%. So getting information, whether it's through a channel or a medium or an astrologer, about what was happening when your loved one was passing and how you might heal or reconcile or make meaning out of this loss in your life is enormously helpful, whether you believe in astrology or not, whether you believe in psychics or not, whether you believe in mediums or not. These are all kind of these, what I think of as um, kind of transpersonal and more spiritual ways of looking at life in a more holistic way. And how can that not be helpful, right?
Right. Well, and for me, there's a lot of psychology involved
Yes, and for me
in
too.
the reading of the chart. I mean, we're looking at personalities, we're looking at um, potentials and the native's nature. We're
And
looking.
we're looking at early life conditioning too, and
Mhm.
kind of things that happened in your family that shaped certain parts of who you are. I think that shows up very clearly in birth charts.
Yes, yes. And speaking of that, people go through tragedies and a lot of different kinds of challenges and there's a range of severity of what the tragedy might look like or the challenges might look like. Um, I know that they can be catalysts for profound personal
Yeah.
transformation. Like, I know that you can't be just happy all the time and have any real growth. And that's a shame,
Mm.
but I really don't believe that you can. So, what is your perspective on that?
So the things that are the most difficult in somebody's birth chart are the seeds for the greatest growth. So I'm 100% with you. And even when I do, so this is a really interesting kind of comparison. So people will come in for compatibility readings, and I've decided that there are three kinds of compatibilities. And the first one is when everything is in trine and sextile. Okay. So there's an easy flow and everything is just like so congenial, right? Well, those people come back years later and they're so deeply bored. They are just bored, like, God, there's no pushback, like, and then there's the conflict-ridden charts where people are completely polarized. And if they can lean into learning from each other, they become great allies with each other. And then the third one is where the charts overlap, but there's enough tension. So they're similar, they're anchored in these similarities, but there's enough tension that they kind of keep pushing each other to grow. And so, yeah, you know, I think, I can say very realistically. So our mother died when we were 17, and I think that really kind of cemented like we showed up for each other more than anybody else could show up for us during that loss. So we became even kind of more dependent maybe, but connected to each other. And that early parent loss shaped me in so many ways. And then uh, I can't remember, 3 decades later, 4 decades later, then my twin died. And that has really changed me in this way of not being able to really take anything for granted. Like I got all this future that she didn't get. And so I better really use my future and enjoy my life and, express my potential because somebody who had mirrored me, so our lives were so uncannily alike up to that point where they diverged with her illness. That it's like, you know, yes,
Yeah.
use the time that you have well because there's no
And
guarantee.
appreciate the people around you. Like we had a few years ago, we had like one death after another, both human and fur baby.
Yeah,
And it was like, there's the main thing that I learned that year was don't take anything for granted.
yeah,
If tell the people you love that you love them. Tell them now. Like, don't wait.
Yeah.
until there's some other issue going on. Just like be kind.
Hmm.
Just don't take what's here now and assume that it's going to be here, because it's likely that there's going to be change of some sort
Yes.
going on.
Yes.
And if it's from a tragedy or whatever, I mean, yes, it can result in PTSD and things like that, but that is also a learning experience.
Yes.
It's all about the learning.
I'm with you 100% on that, Diane.
And so what has the loss taught you about life and love and soul?
Um, well, so a lot of it has been to live my life, to, like you're talking about, to show up, to be present, to love the people who are in my life. But I think that uh, the kind of long-term way that I understand this, so if I go back to that planet Uranus, which was one of the catalysts for the loss, Uranus is about innovation. It's about originality. It's about kind of breaking new ground. And the book Death Charts is that. So if you had asked me 21 years ago, you're at a crossroads and you can lose your twin and write this book that nobody's ever thought about before using astrology to counsel the bereaved, or you can go along happily with your twin the way things are. I would say I vote for happily with my twin the way things are. But that isn't what happened. And something I feel like spirit or the spirit of my twin has really been guiding and pushing me. This death chart helped me so much. Can I understand it deeply enough to create a system to teach people so that now astrologers have a new tool in their toolbox? So I call it a tool in the book because I've been a counseling astrologer for almost 50 years now. And the
Wow.
first 30 years, people would come to me and they're like, oh, I'm so bereaved. I'm in all this grief because I lost my mom. And I would say, well, I'm really sorry, but I didn't know how to help them. And now I do. I have developed a system that if you study it and you understand it, you can help people who, like you, may be having 5 losses in one year. I've had clients under big Pluto transits, and like 6 of their close family and friends will leave that year. And instead of saying, I'm so sorry, I could say, let's talk about the deeper kind of potential for this bringing change into your life in a good way. And you can't say that to people when they're still kind of overwhelmed with the loss. It's more when they're
Right.
a little bit more in the I have to make meaning stage of this.
Yes. And I would also extend this, and you tell me if it's appropriate with the method that you're using. Loss can also mean of a job,
Correct.
of a circumstance, of
Right.
of a lot of different things. It doesn't
Right.
have to be a physical death.
Correct.
So would you be able to apply this method to something like that?
So I think in theory you absolutely would. And I have done 2 death charts for dogs. Okay. And I also have for early pregnancy loss. For those, I
Mm,
mean, those are really terrible for people. I haven't really, I mean, yes, of course, in my work with clients, they've lost jobs or, people lost their house in a fire. And so you can kind of see that. But this is a more kind of focused on you using the transits and eclipses for healing than what I was able to understand or put together before.
okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Um, sometimes the impact is similar, but to lose a house or a job or
Mhm.
something like that, it's a very different karmic experience.
Yeah.
Your connection to that person, like if you believe in cords attaching, like it feels
Mhm.
like something just like
Yeah.
broke apart, and now there's this emptiness where that person was. And over time, you start to manage it. It's not as raw,
Right.
and only time can do that. But it doesn't doesn't necessarily give you the deeper understanding that you're talking
Yeah,
about.
right. So I think that recovery from loss and kind of having time that goes by that maybe just makes it easier to bear. I think that they're different things. And I'd like to believe that this is something that really promotes recovery from loss.
Yeah. I want to talk about how some people are afraid of using tools like this. Oh, there's evil and you're going to bring in different energies that you don't want to deal with. This is a tool, like you said before. Astrology is a tool, just like tarot is a tool, and it gives you perspective expanded beyond the normal state of awareness. It is dealing with energies, and sometimes you hear the term malefics, like certain planets are considered
Mhm.
malefic, and I don't read like that because if everything's a lesson, there's nothing that's malefic. It's
Mhm.
it's all supposed to be part of the experience, right? We're here to experience life, and part of life is loss. And um so for those who are afraid to dive into something like this, what would you say to them? Like what would you want them to get out of the book?
Well, when people come to an astrologer from a very open place, they have a much better experience than when they come and they're already very uncertain, suspicious, or closed off. And so if you don't believe in this, then it's not for you. It's not for everyone. And I don't really have people like coming to me who are closed off anymore. But when I worked at a metaphysical bookstore and I was just like, you know, people coming, yes, people would come and they just like are, I'm going to prove this doesn't work and it's really
Look,
stupid.
yeah,
And then
yeah,
you,
yeah,
you
yeah.
can't get a reading on them to save your life.
Right? Here, let me put this big wall up in front of me. Read me. I
Now
love it.
tell now
Read me.
tell me something, right? Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't work like that.
So if you
It's
don't
it's
believe in it, that's
actually
great.
it's a transaction.
Yes, it
It's a
is.
sharing of energies.
Yes.
And you're right, if you're not open, you know, if you're looking for relief, look at it as a potential to get relief, maybe. Um, but if you're afraid, the fear creates that block too.
Yes, that's very true. Very true.
So that's a difficult situation. But you also have to trust the person who's reading you. So if you don't feel good about the person that's delivering the reading, don't do it because you're blending your energy with them, and that won't be a good
Mhm.
experience. So this has been fascinating. Can you tell me what is going on, how people can get in touch with you? Do you have classes coming up?
Yes. Okay. So everything you need to know about me is on my website, astrologybymoonrabbit.com. Uh, all the different readings that I do. I have a blog, I have a newsletter. Um, I am teaching classes on death charts coming up in November. If you're interested in that, there's a place where you can get on my mailing list. Again, astrologybymoonrabbit.com. There's a link there also on the tab that says death charts. There's a link to the book, so you can buy the book directly from my website. So basically, it's everything that you need in one place. So please look me up online, astrologybymoonrabbit.com.
Wonderful. Yes. So, folks, you can get the book on her website directly or wherever books are sold, right?
Correct, wherever books are sold.
Okay. It has been such a pleasure speaking with you about this, and um, I'm just so happy that there's a way to help the grieving get some relief because it's such a helpless feeling.
Yes, I know. Yes.
And you're doing such a service.
Well, thank you for having me on and allowing me to share with more people what it is that I'm doing and talk a little bit about the book Death Charts.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.